The sun rises every single morning with a silent promise of new beginnings. Yet for many of us, it is merely the start of another cycle of mechanical existence, a repetitive loop where hours vanish into the ether of digital distractions and procrastination. We often live under the dangerous delusion that time is a renewable resource, acting as though we have an infinite supply of tomorrows to finally pursue our passions, mend our relationships, or build the discipline we've always envied in others. However, the sobering reality is that every sunset represents a permanent subtraction from the ledger of our lives, a unit of existence that can never be reclaimed, refunded, or replayed. To waste a day is not just a minor lapse in productivity. It is a fundamental betrayal of our potential and a disregard for the sheer statistical improbability of our own existence. When we talk about not wasting your day, we are not merely discussing how to check more boxes on a to-do list. We are exploring the profound philosophy of intentionality, the radical act of reclaiming your autonomy from the grip of a world designed to keep you distracted, passive, and perpetually waiting for the right time that never actually arrives. To understand why we waste our days, we must first dissect the psychological mechanisms that lead us into the trap of the zero day. A day where absolutely nothing is done to move the needle of our lives forward. Procrastination is rarely a matter of laziness. Rather, it is a sophisticated emotional regulation strategy where our brains prioritize immediate mood repair over long-term well-being. When faced with a daunting task or a challenging goal, our amygdala perceives it as a threat, triggering a fight-or-flight response that leads us to seek safety in the comfort of low-stakes activities like scrolling through social media or reorganizing a desk that doesn't need tidying. This creates a vicious cycle of guilt and avoidance. The more we delay, the more the task grows in our minds as a source of anxiety, making us even more likely to avoid it the following day. We must recognize that the perfect conditions we are waiting for are a psychological mirage, a defense mechanism used by the ego to protect us from the possibility of failure. By understanding that the resistance we feel is a biological byproduct of stepping outside our comfort zone, we can begin to treat action not as a result of motivation, but as the precursor to it. Furthermore, the modern landscape is meticulously engineered to exploit these vulnerabilities, with algorithms designed to hijack our dopamine pathways and keep us in a state of perpetual consumption. Every notification, every infinite scroll, and every auto-playing video is a calculated attempt to monetize our attention, which is the most valuable currency we possess. When we succumb to these distractions without a conscious plan, we are essentially allowing corporate engineers to dictate the trajectory of our lives. Breaking free from this requires more than just willpower, which is a finite and unreliable resource. It requires a structural redesign of our environment and a fundamental shift in how we perceive the value of an hour. We must move from being passive consumers of life to active architects of our daily experience, recognizing that a day wasted on trivialities is a day stolen from the person we are capable of becoming. The cost of a zero day isn't just the lost work, it's the erosion of self-trust that occurs when we repeatedly break the promises we make to ourselves. Looking back through history, the wisest minds have always warned against the casual squandering of time, perhaps none more eloquently than the Stoic philosopher Seneca in his treatise on the shortness of life. Seneca argued that life is long enough if we know how to use it, but we are often wasteful of it as if it costs nothing. He observed that people are incredibly protective of their money and property, yet they allow others to trespass on their time without a second thought, despite time being the only thing we can never get back. This ancient wisdom is more relevant today than ever before. We treat our days as if they are placeholders for a future that hasn't happened yet, always looking toward the weekend, the next vacation or retirement, while the actual substance of our lives, the present moment, slips through our fingers. To live intentionally is to practice memento mori, the remembrance of death, not as a morbid obsession, but as a powerful catalyst for urgent and meaningful action. When we truly internalize the fact that our time is finite, the trivial distractions that used to consume hours suddenly seem absurdly insignificant. The true tragedy of a wasted day is the gradual accumulation of regret that stems from a life lived on autopilot. We often think that life is something that happens in the grand gestures, the promotions, the weddings, the major milestones. But in reality, life is composed of the mundane Tuesday afternoons and the quiet Monday mornings. How we spend our days is, quite literally, how we spend our lives. If we allow our days to be filled with resentment, distraction, and delay, we are constructing a life of the same materials. Therefore, the fight to not waste your day is a spiritual battle for the quality of your character. It is about choosing the hard easy over the easy hard, the discipline of focused work that leads to long-term fulfillment versus the ease of mindless distraction that leads to long-term emptiness. By adopting a Stoic perspective, we learn to distinguish between what is within our control, our effort, our focus, and our reactions, and what is not, allowing us to channel our energy into the present moment with a sense of purpose that transcends the fleeting whims of emotion. Transitioning from philosophy to practice requires us to abandon the obsession with goals and instead focus on the systems that govern our daily routine. A goal is a distant destination, but a system is the process you follow every single day. While a goal might provide direction, it is the system that actually makes progress possible. To ensure a day is not wasted, one must master the art of the non-zero day, a concept where no matter how tired or uninspired you feel, you commit to doing at least one small thing that contributes to your long-term growth. This could be reading just one page of a book, writing one paragraph, or doing 5 minutes of exercise. The power of this approach lies in the preservation of momentum and the psychological victory of showing up. When we set impossibly high bars for ourselves, we often fail and then give up entirely. However, when we focus on the consistency of the system, we harness the power of compounding interest. Small, seemingly insignificant actions, when repeated daily, transform into massive results over time, turning a wasted year into a masterpiece of disciplined evolution. A critical component of a robust daily system is the deep work framework popularized by Cal Newport. In an age of constant connectivity, the ability to focus without distraction on a cognitively demanding task is becoming increasingly rare and, therefore, increasingly valuable. To truly respect your time, you must carve out sacred spaces in your day, blocks of 90 to 120 minutes where your phone is off, your notifications are silenced, and your entire mental energy is directed toward a single high-leverage objective. Most people spend their days in a state of continuous partial attention, never fully engaging with their work or their rest. This leads to a feeling of being busy without being productive, a high-stress, low-output existence. By prioritizing deep work, you can often accomplish more in 2 focused hours than most people do in a distracted 8-hour workday, leaving you with genuine free time to rest and recharge without the nagging sense of guilt that accompanies a wasted day. Remember, the goal is not to be a hustle culture drone, but to be efficient enough to live a life of depth and meaning. We must also acknowledge that we do not live in a vacuum. Our environment and the people we surround ourselves with play a pivotal role in how we value our time. If your physical space is cluttered and your digital space is a minefield of distractions, you are essentially setting yourself up for failure. A day is often wasted before it even begins because of poor choice architecture. If the first thing you do upon waking is check your email or social media, you have already surrendered your focus to the agendas of others. To combat this, you must proactively design your environment to make good habits easy and bad habits difficult. This might mean leaving your phone in another room while you sleep, using website blockers during work hours, or creating a dedicated workspace that signals to your brain that it is time to focus. By reducing the number of decisions you have to make about how to spend your time, you preserve your decision fatigue for the tasks that actually matter. Furthermore, the social dimension of time management is often overlooked. We are, as the saying goes, the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. If your social circle consists of individuals who lack ambition, constantly complain, or prioritize short-term pleasure over long-term growth, you will find it incredibly difficult to maintain a high standard for your own days. On the other hand, being around people who value their time and are pursuing their own excellence acts as a natural forcing function for your own productivity. This isn't about being elitist, it's about being intentional with your social energy. Engage in positive social pressure by sharing your intentions with others or finding an accountability partner. When you see others making the most of their 24 hours, it serves as a constant reminder of what is possible. Protecting your time also means learning the power of the word no. Every time you say yes to a social obligation you don't care about, or a project that doesn't align with your values, you are saying no to your own priorities. Guard your time with the same ferocity you would guard your home, for it is the only true property you possess. It is a common misconception that not wasting your day means working every waking second. In fact, a day spent in relentless grinding labor without adequate rest is often just as wasteful as a day spent in total idleness, because it leads to burnout, diminished returns, and a loss of the creative spark that makes work meaningful. True productivity is cyclical, not linear. We must learn to distinguish between active recovery, which includes activities like walking in nature, meditating, or engaging in a hobby that refreshes the soul, and passive consumption, which is the mindless scrolling that leaves us feeling more depleted than before. To waste a day is to fail to provide yourself with the nourishment you need to function at your peak. If you are constantly exhausted, you aren't being hardworking, you are being inefficient. High performers understand that sleep, nutrition, and mental downtime are not breaks from the work, they are essential components of the work. Therefore, an educational approach to time management must include the mastery of intentional rest. This means scheduling your downtime with as much care as your work blocks. When you are resting, be fully present in that rest. Do not let thoughts of work intrude upon your time with family or your moments of solitude. The paradox of productivity is that by allowing yourself to truly do nothing during your scheduled breaks, you increase your capacity to do everything during your work hours. A day is well spent when it has balance, when you can look back at the end of the evening and feel the satisfied tiredness of someone who gave their best to their labor and their full presence to their loved ones. This holistic view of time prevents the burnout cycle and ensures that your pursuit of a non-wasted life is sustainable for the long haul. We aren't machines, we are biological entities that require rhythm, and respecting that rhythm is the ultimate form of time management. As we bring this narrative to a close, let us return to the central question. Why does it matter if you waste your day? It matters because your life is not a dress rehearsal. It is the real performance, and the clock is ticking regardless of whether you are ready or not. Every morning you are credited with 86,400 seconds in your bank of time. At the end of the day, any balance you haven't used for good is simply written off as a loss. You cannot carry it over to tomorrow. You cannot borrow against the future. You only have what is in front of you right now. The difference between those who achieve their dreams and those who die with their music still inside them is not a difference in talent or luck. It is a difference in how they respect the 24 hours that are given to everyone equally. To not waste your day is to acknowledge the sanctity of your own life and to have the courage to stand up and say that your existence matters enough to be treated with intention. So, as you step away from this video and back into the flow of your life, I challenge you to look at the remainder of this day through a new lens. Do not ask, what do I have to do? But rather, who am I becoming through my actions? Start small, build your systems, guard your focus, and forgive yourself for past mistakes, but refuse to remain stagnant. The greatest gift you can give to yourself and to the world is the realization of your full potential, and that realization begins with a single well-spent day. Do not wait for a new year, a new month, or even a new morning. The right time is always the present moment. Take that one step, make that one call, write that one page, and break the cycle of someday. Your future self is waiting for you to decide that today is the day everything changed. Don't waste it.